this isn't going well, and if a leader chooses to just ignore it, all right, we'll just leave it, we'll just brush by it, the group will actually eventually have a hard time trusting you as a leader because there's this issue that you're not dealing with. Hey, and welcome to Conversations for Small Group Leaders. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to deal with that person. So sit down or stand up, whatever's most comfy, and get ready for this week's episode on how to deal with that person. All right, everyone, welcome here. I am Chris Carr, and this is the fabulous Dana Lowen, and we are here today to talk about a very exciting topic, how to deal with or what to do with that person.
Okay. Before we start, Chris.
Oh, boy.
Have you ever been that person? Think of a time.
Oh, yeah.
You were that person.
I've been that guy.
You've been that guy?
Okay, so to my wife's horror, I am that guy on our street. Let me explain to you the outfit that I wore the other day. And just keep in mind, like, our neighbors probably think that I am just the weirdest guy ever. But I found this jacket that I bought from MCC when I was maybe in high school. So it's like these big color blocks of bright neon. So I'm wearing bright neon windbreaker. And then I'm wearing my sweatpants tucked into my socks because I'm cool like that.
Oh, yeah.
With a pair of Birkenstocks on. And another thing about me that you should know is, I think I've told you this, I love basketball. So I will shoot hoops. Like that's how, when I get home from work, the boys are playing, I'll shoot hoops at home. So my neighbors are driving by and seeing what looks like this completely disheveled outfit.
So, I can imagine it. This weirdo shooting hoops.
Yeah. So on my street, I am that guy.
You are that guy.
Yeah. So why don't we just get right into this? First of all, Dana, why don't you just describe to me and to everyone joining us here today, what do we mean when we talk about that person?
Okay, so I think we've all been there. We've all had those moments where we maybe didn't quite feel like we were fitting in. And so we all know what it's like to feel a little odd, to be a little awkward, to be a little weird. Some people are that way a little bit more often than others. But I think before we even start talking and having this conversation, it's important to acknowledge that every single person has been created by God. We've all been created in his image. We're all image bearers of Christ the King. We all have intrinsic worth and value and something to contribute to the kingdom. Yeah. And so God gives spiritual gifts to everybody. Yeah. And so everybody has the opportunity to contribute to Christ's kingdom.
Oh, I love that.
And so some people are harder to love than others. And some people we naturally click with. And other people may kind of grate on us a little bit. And so what might be like somebody who feels odd or weird to one person might actually fit in really well with another group. And so I think it's important that we don't label people and that we don't classify people, but that we are just the hands and feet of Christ and we're shining light and love to all people that we meet. But that being said, some people are a little bit harder to love than others. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that. Yeah.
And just a little bit like out of the mold a little bit, just cut from a different cloth. We're saying it a bunch of different ways. And of course, I love what you started off by saying, each person made in the image of God. Today in this conversation, we're obviously joking around, a little tongue in cheek about that person, right? Because we all know, like you said, we've been that person or we've had a person in our group who's just a little bit different, but we want to be really clear that we're not trying to make fun of anyone. Our goal is actually in talking about this beforehand. How do we as leaders of small groups or people within a small group, how do we love each person and learn to love each person to the best of our ability, the way that God created them, and not have this agenda to try to change someone to become like us or like the group? In a sense, how do we allow someone to be themselves, but yet love them in a way, even if we have differences, love them in a way that would be God honoring. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about how do we as a group, how do we love that person? So here's a question for you, Dana. In a small group setting, what do you do if you have someone in your group who is disrupting the flow of the evening? Whether it's, a quirk or being argumentative, what do you do? What have you heard of people doing in that situation?
Well, I think this is an important thing for cell leaders to know how to navigate, because in the context of a small group, we're dealing with a group dynamic, and we're also dealing with individuals. And so we go back and forth between the needs of the group and also the needs of the individual. And if we cater too much to the individual's needs, we can actually damage the group, because the group is actually wanting to function as a group organism. And so dealing with that person that's being disruptive becomes very, very important. It also helps build trust within the group, knowing what is acceptable, what is safe behavior within a group and what isn't. Yeah. So in the case of somebody who's being disruptive, or maybe it's a weird social quirk, or maybe they're oversharing, I think it's really important for the leader to not avoid or try to ignore those types of things. Often what happens is we feel like in order to be loving, we can't say anything, like, oh, I shouldn't say anything. I just need to love them exactly the way they are. And yes, we need to love them exactly the way they are, but we also want to help them grow. Yeah. And so having some one-on-one conversations becomes really important. Yeah. And things aren't going to change if we just kind of just have this attitude, well, I'm just going to see if this fixes itself. Things do not fix themselves. So being strategic and starting with a one-on-one conversation becomes really, really important.
Okay, I want to highlight two things that you just said that I think are really important. First of all, like, the question is, what do you do with that if that person is disrupting the group? What if it's like one person, or maybe it's two or three in your group are disrupting the whole group? One thing that I think is incredibly important for leaders to remember out of this episode is, yes, the question, what do we do in coming to a solution? That's a good one, but it's more important that you just do something, that you remember that you are the leader of this group. And so if you are noticing that something is a little bit off, or, that this person seems to kind of be pulling the group in a different direction, if you are feeling it, chances are everyone else in the group is feeling it. Yeah. And if you just ignore it and let it continue to happen, it can, like you said, actually be it can be not good for the entire rest of the group, because they're looking to you and going, okay, you're seeing this issue here. You're seeing like this isn't going well. And if a leader chooses to just ignore it, all right, we'll just leave it, we'll just brush by it, the group will actually eventually have a hard time trusting you as a leader, because there's this issue that you're not dealing with, which I think, so remember that, do something with it, make inroads somehow with this situation, which we're going to now get into the next question, which are, what are some effective strategies to dealing with that person, whatever the problem might be? What are some effective strategies for dealing with that, for making that action?
Right. So the one-on-one conversation is huge, and it would depend a little bit what the disruptive behavior is. Is it a personality thing? Is it something like they're just on their phone texting the whole evening?
If they have horrible body odor.
If they have really bad body odor, well then, having one-on-one conversations is actually helpful to somebody, because if it's bothering you, it's probably bothering other people in their lives too. And we can really help this person feel more love in all areas of their life by having important conversations like this. So even mentioning things, setting some healthy boundaries, some things that I hear cell leaders talk about are, inappropriate use of a group chat. And so just chatting with the person about like what's appropriate to post on the cell chat, or the group chat, and what is inappropriate. Sometimes people stay too late, and it's like, even just saying, you know what, we love having you after cell, we'll gladly visit with you, but 10 o'clock in the evening is our bedtime. And being honest about those things are really important. Sometimes people overshare, and they just share and share and share. And the cell leader needs to be able to just divert that and say, you know what, we would love to hear the whole story, But we got to get to prayer. Like, prayer is so effective. Prayer is where things are going to change in the supernatural. So can you summarize this in a short prayer request so we can just pray for you? So these are just little tips and tricks that cell leaders can learn to just be assertive even in the moment in a way that comes across as really loving, really caring, but yet not just letting them derail your whole cell night.
So to give an example to that, I think a lot of feedback I've received from, how does this play out in an average small group? What do you do with that person that they've got something going on in their life and week after week they come to cell and just share every single negative part of their life, what's going on? For me, I've had this with jobs before, with your boss. You want to ask for prayer for your work situation, but then in asking for prayer, you end up taking 10 minutes to just list every bad thing that is happening at work. And first of all, I want to say, I actually understand that. When you are in a situation like that, you want to be able to have people that you can talk that through with, just to even be able to get an understanding, like, am I crazy in this? So naturally at a small group, you would want to do that. But I think it's really important for a leader to know that, okay, if that happens once, okay, understandable. But if that becomes a pattern, that can actually become something where people tune out from wanting to love this person and pray with them through it. And now it's like, oh, great, here comes another 10-minute, 15-minute rant on how bad things are. So in a situation like that, meeting with this person one-on-one and saying, look, we actually want to love you. We want to walk with you through this situation, and we want to pray with you through this situation. But boundaries, healthy boundaries in that situation might be, if you want to talk about all of the details and what exactly happened, the circumstances behind the prayer request, that we can do one-on-one. Would you call me? Can we meet and talk about that? But when we're at cell, can we make sure that everyone gets a chance to share? And so you can just share, hey, I need prayer for a situation at work. I need wisdom and I need to grow in character.
Absolutely.
And then it can transform it from being a time of talking about all the problems to actually getting to the prayer, which will lead to answered prayer.
Absolutely.
All that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great example of how you can put a boundary in place to help a person like that and love them through the situation rather than just saying, stop talking.
Yeah. We got an hour and a half for our small group. So we got to make sure everybody gets prayed for and everybody gets a chance to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I think that's super exciting for small group leaders. I hope that out of this, you get some assurance that, you're not alone. We get this question all the time. And Dana, I think you've probably faced this in a cell that you've led. I certainly have too. So be encouraged if this has happened to you. You're not a bad leader. But action does need to be taken. So that's the recap is, what do you do with that person? Well, do something. Start by having a one-on-one conversation. Don't do it in front of the whole group. Don't embarrass them in that way, but pull them aside, have that one-on-one conversation, and then help them with boundaries to learn how to be in that group so that they can be most loved and well received. That about sums it up for me. Do you have anything else you want to add,
Well,
Dana?
and we're here as a resource for cell leaders. So if there's a tricky situation you're navigating through, come and talk to us. We can even role play with you. We can practice with you so that when you have that meeting, you're loving them and you're helping them and you're guiding them, and it can have maximum fruit in your cell.
Yeah. Right on. Cool. Well, that's it for today's conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, we're praying for all small group leaders that you guys would meet with people and love them where they're at, and that you personally would be led as well in doing this. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time.